Let's talk transportation, public transportation in Lagos. Can investment in public minibuses, otherwise known as danfos, in Lagos be improved via privatization? Further, is putting ownership in the hands of drivers of minibuses the best solution? Well, our next guest wrote a Twitter thread on this matter, which was read by almost 30,000 people. It went viral. Femi Olaoye is the Chief Operating Officer for Tusset Industries. He is a chemical engineer with associated degrees in mining, energy, and railway engineering, which makes him practically the best person to talk about this. You're very welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What does Tusset do, Tusset Industries?
So Tusset Agro Industries Limited is an oil refinery, and we're basically into the refining of edible oils, otherwise known as vegetable oils. We are basically in the palm oil and palm kernel oil segment.
Yeah.
So we process palm oil and palm kernel oil into its different process forms, and we also have fractionating plants, saponification plants, and we also operate a 10 megawatt power plant that supplies our entire facility, and we've been running that for about 8 years now.
Uninterrupted power supply?
Uninterrupted power supply for
How
about 8 years.
that?
Subsurface, 11 kV distribution network. So
okay.
We're doing what...
You're in there.
Yeah, exactly.
What needs to be done? All right, let's talk transportation real quick. I think ownership starts from the Lagos state government. I think as of 2019, ownership of BRT buses went from about 170 to 434 between 2015 and 2019. The buses are listed as privately owned, but you said in that your viral thread that there's not enough data on ownership. Can you explain the transparency problem around that?
Okay, so if you look at when it actually started at the beginning, first of all, we had the red buses that were private, that were completely owned by Lamata, and then shortly afterwards on the corridor axis, we then started to see Primero TSL, as they're called. So if you just do a quick Google search, you will find the directors of those who own, people like Demola Seriki, Fola Tinubu, and co. But then you would appreciate the fact that Danfo drivers, as they're called right now, will not have the tools to look up that data. So they don't actually know who owns these buses. But if you look at it from their perspective, they feel kind of cheated. Some of them that I've spoken to would say that they are left to basically fight for scraps. Because their major routes have been taken from them, and then they are left with little or nothing. But I see it differently. I see it from the perspective of public ownership. So Lagos State Transportation is, as it is, we know how difficult it is, we know what the difficulties are, but I feel that it can be more efficient. And the efficiency can be improved by putting ownership in the hands of the public. Simply, these Danfo drivers who run these old buses can easily be drafted into a public system between Lamata itself and the public system, the public ownership, and those buses can be taken off them in refund with an amount that can go into an SPV. For instance, like an SPV that is put on the public stock exchange, in NGX stock exchange.
Just for our viewers, SPV is special purpose vehicle, right? Okay, go ahead.
That can be put on the stock exchange, and anybody can subscribe to it, including these Danfo drivers. So in that sense, you would have an efficient public system that is owned by the people themselves. And these same drivers can apply to be drivers on that 24-hour service. So personally, I think that the system can be better handled properly. It can be improved upon. Yes, they've done a lot. People are enjoying the services that are currently being offered, but I think that there is a lot more that we can do. For instance, if we look at the last mile situation, a lot of people have to walk long distances to be able to get to bus stops and stuff like that. If more buses are injected, you said at the beginning that we have only 434 buses for about 20 million people. I mean, that really doesn't make a lot of sense in quote. But if we include more buses, we put more buses on the roads, we put more drivers in the pool, we expand the network, we ensure that we have more buses on the last mile to be able to service. Like for instance, if you go to a place like the UK, you can step out from your house, walk about 10, 15 minutes, or even 5 minutes in some instances to the nearest bus stop, where within 5 to 10 minutes you will see a bus going to wherever it is that you're going to. That should be the system that we should have running in Lagos State, because Lagos State is far gone beyond the point where we are basically dilly-dallying in terms of transportation.
You mentioned, I heard you say 24-hour service. Do we technically have a 24-hour service, bus service? Not really.
Right now. Yeah, technically we do not have that, but I foresee a Lagos where we can have a 24-hour system. The reason why I would say we don't have that right now is because Lagos State itself is not directly operating a 24-hour economy. Why? Because we're not trading as we should. We should be able to trade.
Yeah.
The reason why you have a 24-hour economy is because you are trading with people on the other side of the world who are up while you are supposed to be at sleep. But we're not seeing that happen. And I think that we have the potential, we have the tools, we have the resource to be able to do that. And I think that going forward in the next couple of years, Lagos State should be able to move from what we currently have to a 24-hour state.
Great stuff. Let's talk rail. Your thread, your viral thread also touched on rail. Elevated rail service. If you drive through, is it from Marina or so? You should. Don't we have? Isn't that part of the plans? Or
yes. So that's part of the current plan as we see it unfolding. And the reason why that is because we have a very low water table, and the soil type that we have here is not that good enough for subsurface rail transit systems. So elevated is the way to go, which is what they are currently doing. I advise that we continue to move in that direction, where we can put it on the surface, where we have space off the hard shoulder of the road surface. We can also employ those spaces where you have just open drains. You can cover those drains, put something on top of it, put a concrete base on top of it, and allow rail to run over them. So there are many solutions that can be employed to expanding the rail service. But if you're looking at an integrated mass transit system, that integrated mass transit system has to include all the mass transit options that are available, including rail, as I've espoused.
You seem to like privatization a lot.
Yes, because of efficiency. Efficiency is the key to it.
Okay, so you mentioned privatization of rail as well. Would the issues facing the Nigerian Railway Corporation, has that played into why you think railway should be privatized? Yes, of course, obviously, because if you look at systems where rail system runs efficiently, you will find that they are mostly privatized. You will find that they are cut up into chunks, into segments where private individuals can come in, private companies can come in to run those segments. So the government owns the base infrastructure, has the license to the base infrastructure, but then you have private ownership that comes in to run the surface equipment, from the rail track itself to the rail cars themselves, and even to the provision of electricity, either by the third rail or by cantilever system. So there are many options that are available to ensuring that we have, and not just that, ensuring that we have an optimal rail system, but to put money in the hands of people to create wealth, because that's the basis of why we are running this whole indices on the GDP and all of that. The reason why we do all of that is because we are measuring the wealth that is created in a single calendar year. What about, by the way, we were in, I remember in other climes you can take a train at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning.
Exactly.
All right. What about prices? Because to an extent, the bus fare, the railway fare here is subsidized, right? If you're privatized, doesn't that jack up prices?
No, it does not. Because why? You're looking at mass transit, number one. Number two, you're looking at the energy that is driving the mass transit. So, for instance, in a situation where you have DMUs, where you have diesel motorized or multiple units running the rail cars, that in itself will increase costs. We know what the price of diesel is right now in the market. That will cost the single ticket price to go up. But if you have a system that is run by, say, for instance, like we do, we run our power plants on natural gas. It's gas fired. So that drops the cost drastically. Natural gas is about 109, 110 naira versus 700, 800 naira for the diesel. So if you compare those costs, it drastically reduces the cost, number one. Number two, if you have everybody on board on that mass transit system, where in fact you have about 20 million people riding maybe on a weekly basis, you have 20 million people riding, it reduces the cost in terms of economics of scale. So costing is not the problem. The problem is the infrastructure, the system, the opaque system, the lack of infrastructure or the lack of policy from government itself. So I think all these things can be worked on and ironed out to open up the space and to ensure that we have a brand new set of people who can come aboard to create jobs for our teeming population.
Hey, look, it's jobs, right? That should power every policy. You mentioned DMUs, the diesel motorized units. The current rail, well, at least the first phase that's been announced, EMU, right?
Electric built to be EMUs, but currently running on DMUs because they have not finished the power plant.
Now, EMU is electrified motorized units. Okay, so go ahead. So it's not quite an EMU yet.
Yes, not yet. So currently, with the test phase, what we've seen is that it's being driven by DMUs, diesel multiple units or motorized units, like some other people will call them. And that, of course, is not what it ought to be. The same thing happened in Abuja, because I rode the Abuja train as well. the same thing happened there. It was a diesel motorized unit that was driving it because the power infrastructure was lacking. It was not there, and so they could not power the infrastructure. And also that even opened up the system to vandals.
Yes.
Because if it's not electrified, vandals can come in and just simply cut the cables. But a situation where you have this electrified, it prevents vandals from coming in because they know it's electrified, they cannot tamper with it, or else they'll get electrocuted. So these are some of the things that we need to iron out, that we need to sort out as Nigerians.
It should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it should be, exactly.
Yeah, why is it so complicated?
Yeah.
But what about the whole issue of, explain this part. You're talking about electrified motorized units, but there's power issues. You explain how that can be solved, even though we've got,
So I like to talk and do.
Yes,
like Nigerians will say.
Yes.
I've done it.
Yeah.
So I can talk about it. We've been generating power for the last 8 years uninterrupted.
Okay.
Using gas-fired power plants. It can easily be done.
Right.
And I remember reading the document for the contract for the Lagos Blue Rail project.
Yeah.
I read the contract, and the terms for the electrification of the project itself was based on a ring mesh system, electrification system, where you had the power plant on one end, and then you had a ring type power supply design where if there's a failure on one end, the other side of the ring can pick up the
right.
So, but that has not been done. Why hasn't it been done? Why can it not be done? Because to me, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. Within 6 to 8 months, it can be implemented, and I don't see why. I don't understand why it has not been done.
So far, so it could be funding. It could be
any host of things, which is why I'm advocating for the private sector to be given the opportunity. Look at the NGX, for instance. I mean, last week we did basically 60 billion or thereabout.
Yeah.
Last week. I mean, for crying out loud, in Nigeria, $560 billion economy, we can do far better.
Right.
If you have players coming into the industry mandated to be listed on the public stock exchange, we would have more companies listing on the stock exchange, and we have a more robust economy. So I think that the government just has to open its hands. Forget about any personal, forget about anything. Open your hands, allow the private sector to come in to run these things. If, for instance, I'm given the opportunity to supply power, I'll do it within 6 months. I will electrify the entire thing within 6 months.
Again, that's why your Twitter thread was viral, all right? That's why we had to have you on to talk about this. Femi Olaoye, the Chief Operating Officer to Said Industries. Very engaging conversation on infrastructure with transportation in Lagos. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.